Hello, welcome to the Route to Success, where we explore hope, resilience, and practical leadership through real stories and lived experience. Today's conversation is grounded, honest, and deeply connected to community level change. I'm joined by Matt Tanner, Executive Director of United Against Poverty. Matt has spent more than 20 years working in the nonprofit sector, beginning as a Peace Corps volunteer in Costa Rica and continuing through workforce development, higher education, veteran services, and now community-based alleviation. Side note, I used to run a AmeriCorps program, which is domestic Peace Corps. Super excited to have this conversation. Matt's story is about finding purpose through service, navigating unexpected transitions, and building systems that meet people where they are. In this episode, we'll talk grassroots work, workforce development, collaboration, and what it takes to stay hopeful when the work is hard and the need is real. Matt, thank you so much for being here today and for the work you do every day.
Well, thanks, Sarah. Thank you for that awesome introduction as well.
Hey, I got all that from my conversation with you. So that is 100% you right there. Let's start off with honesty. Okay, so what I'm truly interested in talking to you about, and we will move past Peace Corps, but I definitely want to spend a few questions talking about Peace Corps. You began your journey as a Peace Corps volunteer in Costa Rica.
Yes.
What did that experience teach you about community service and hope that still guides your leadership today?
Oh my goodness. Wow. So much. It's amazing how, I was just actually speaking to somebody about Peace Corps today. It never really leaves you, even though you start to stack all of these amazing life and professional experiences post Peace Corps service. I have a hard time not being drawn back to how influential that experience was for me, and in a positive way. But a lot of those positives came out of some of the more challenging negative experiences. And so, it's the entire process, and I think some of the experience certainly has changed. It's been essentially 20 years plus since I've served. The slogan at the time was the toughest job you'll ever love. And I haven't seen a more perfect representation of an experience than that. And I mean, in terms of what it taught me so much, Sarah, I think that a lot of us, we're pretty much fresh out of our college experience. None of us has had real meaningful workforce experiences at that point in time. And, I was certainly under the impression that, I was coming down to make a substantial change in a community that could really benefit from my education and my background. And I was humbled very, very quickly in that, I needed a lot more support and I needed to slow down. I think, I had up until that point, been operating out of kind of a very prescriptive system of success, right? I mean, you come right out of elementary school, go into high school. If you're fortunate and that's what you want to pursue, you go into higher education, and you kind of know exactly how your week, your semester, your year is going to fold out. All of your assignments are given to you, the resources are presented. You just got to put in the work to go do it. Peace Corps was the exact opposite. And I think it was really by design. There was a 3-month period for us before we were signed in as Peace Corps volunteers, where we were Peace Corps trainees. And that was really just kind of, when they tie the feet and hands of Marines when they're getting trained and throw them into a pool and you're going to sink down to the bottom, you need to figure out how to swim back to the top to get a breath. That's what it felt like. And in a lot of ways, that's what my first year felt like, where when I finally got sworn in as a volunteer and I had some basic language skills, I didn't really feel like I had a ton of guidance. And I can always remember probably about 6 months into my service, I had some conversations with my family back at home, and I was really at that point where I was ready to leave. I was ready to close out my service. I didn't feel like I was making a change. I still felt a little bit lost. I had gotten a little bit ill. I was starting to lose a lot of weight. It just didn't feel right. I couldn't imagine how I was going to make this experience and how I was feeling last for nearly 3 years. And so I spoke to our assistant Peace Corps director. This was an American hire. His name's Dan Baker. And I said, I was prepared, I kind of had my notes. I'm going to talk to Dan. I'm going to let him know I'm ready to go home. I kind of started the conversation and he said, tell me what you did today. I said, okay, well, I woke up, I had coffee with my next door neighbor, took a shower, kind of got myself together, walked out to the school. I had nothing really planned. So they let me observe a class, and then I played soccer with some kids, and then I had coffee with the teachers, and then I spoke to the principal for a little bit, went and had lunch with a neighbor, and now we're talking, and I'm supposed to go have dinner with another neighbor tonight. And I'm almost a little embarrassed sharing this response. I felt like I had done nothing that was work related, nothing that was project specific, right? And he was like, you are doing it. You're doing it. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And it was like this huge sense of relief, and this weight came off of me to hear my boss tell me that. And that whole conversation really changed my whole perspective, because the second year of my service was substantially different than my first, because the first year was all about building trust, building relationships, really getting a chance to understand through genuine feedback from members of our community, what are the challenges? What are the resources? It's almost like an impromptu organic SWOT analysis. I'm not walking around using a piece of paper. I'm just having real conversations and real observations that can only really be pulled once that relationship and that trust is there. And then once I have enough mastery at that point of the Spanish language to really be able to navigate those conversations. So that lesson alone is the primary one that I've really carried forward into every other career opportunity I've had in the nonprofit space. Vero Beach, where I am now, I have never been here before. Coming back to Miami post Peace Corps was a very different experience as somebody that was bilingual. Spent some time in Atlanta. All these places brand new. Take the time, build the relationships, build the trust, understand the challenges of your community and the role that you can play with the organization that you're with, and then watch the results. And it's played out that way for me over the last 20 years.
I think what you hit on is so key, is it's take the time to build the relationships. And I know when I've done that, you just see all the connections light up. And that's also when your work gains that meaning, right? Because you have those relationships, you want to see people succeed. So thank you for sharing. That was absolutely beautiful. And it was a good segue into our next question, which is, after Peace Corps, you worked across foster care, higher education, workforce development, and veteran services.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that working close to the ground mattered more to you than traditional career progression?
Yeah. So when I came back from my Peace Corps service, the first job I found was with a foster care organization in Miami, and was hired as a family case manager, and loved so many elements of that job, but realized probably close to a year in that to have the influence the kind of change, or to be in a position, there were a lot of things that were frustrating, obviously, about the foster care system, and observations and things that I wanted to do for the kids that were on my caseload that I simply didn't have the power to do in my role. Real system level changes that I wanted to impact, and realized the individuals that were in those roles who could have more influence had their master's degree. And so I wanted to pursue that, and got my master's from the University of Maryland in Baltimore. And then that's where I got my introduction into higher education. I was doing long distance with my now wife. At the time we were dating, and there were some opportunities in Baltimore, but I wanted to come back to Miami, and had a family connection at Florida International University. Never really saw myself in higher ed. Career services was not something that I was particularly familiar with, or quite frankly excited about, but it was a job opportunity. And as soon as I got in there, I started to realize quickly that most higher ed institutions really are a community in and of themselves. And if you talk to folks that work in higher ed, I think it is a primarily common experience where a lot of the offices that are made up of the services for students are a little bit siloed, right? Greek life, student services, um, international experiences, all the way to career services. They don't interface that much. And so I really felt, and all I knew was to, again, bring my Peace Corps experience, bring my education now at this point, which was a focus on community organizing, and said, why, let's break down these silos. Let's find more creative and engaging ways to work collaboratively to support the students, learn about each other's offices and the services that we can offer, and loved it. And quickly found an opportunity for leadership at another institution in South Florida, Miami-Dade College. And at that point, Sarah, when I was about a year into that role, 90% of my job was interfacing with other administrators, other leaders across campuses. And I really felt like I was missing being on the ground. I felt like we were making a lot of decisions kind of that ivory tower. And it wasn't necessarily being informed by what students on the ground were saying would work for them. And we were maybe making some assumptions. And that, at that point it was, well, do I continue to stay here and climb within the realm of higher education? I could see what those next levels in career progression in higher education would look like. And there were certainly things that were appealing about them, but it seemed like they were getting further and further disconnected from that groundwork, that grassroots work that I really love so much and appreciate. And so made the tough decision to kind of start over in a sense and move away from higher education and find something that would be a little bit more boots on the ground. And was very fortunate to find the Mission Continues, a national veteran service nonprofit. And that really reinvigorated me. It felt in so many ways like the closest experience I had to Peace Corps since Peace Corps. And even though I'm in an executive director level role now, it's still very much boots on the ground, which I appreciate. I can't really see myself not having that as a part of my career moving forward.
I get that. There's something so rewarding about actually, I always say working in the trenches, just working with the people who are getting the services and being able to say to them, hey, this is what I see. What is your opinion? Do you think that's a real solution? And I always tell people, and now I speak to it more as a grant writer, saying, asking these questions as per grants. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, if you're doing a strategic plan, if you're doing program design, whatever element you're doing in a nonprofit, going to the people, your clients, and asking them the questions are always going to give you the best answers.
Sure.
And it's so much fun. And I think you're one of the few people that would get it when I'm like, it's so much fun when you get to go and do that. And because people who don't get that joy don't understand it when you're like, it's so much fun. It's just hard to explain. It's like Christmas morning,
It is. And I'll tell you what else, and this can't necessarily work for every organization, but we're very blessed here at United Against Poverty, where we do have workforce programs. We've got a lot of different moving pieces in our mission here to lift people out of poverty. Workforce is certainly a part of that. We do have, as our director of development, one of our career coaches, one of the individuals that's helping to navigate through crisis, our volunteer coordinator, our intake coordinator. They're all graduates of our workforce program. And I don't think it's a necessity to be successful in the nonprofit field to have it be mandatory that you've walked in a mile in somebody's shoes, that you've had that lived experience. But it certainly can be very beneficial. And so even if it's not always having the time to be directly connected with every decision based on feedback on the ground, if you've got staff in the room that certainly understand that experience because they've been there, done that, it's irreplaceable.
Exactly. So let's talk COVID, which I think for all of us was a major just shift in our paths and our journeys.
Yes.
COVID disrupted your career at a moment when your family was growing.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that uncertainty, and what helped you reframe that moment as an opportunity rather than a setback?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily in the moment felt like an opportunity versus a setback. I'll be honest with you. I think in hindsight now, I can certainly reflect on that, and I'm appreciative. But it really did. It did disrupt us. Yes, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I was working for the Mission Continues, which, is a national nonprofit with a primary focus on getting veterans reintegrated into their communities post-service using large community service events as the medium to do that. And then overnight, it was, we can't gather together. These are unsafe decisions. We needed to shift either into a virtual space, and then ultimately a lot of staff cuts needed to happen as a result of that. So, we were fortunate enough. Thank God I have my wife and I've got a partner in crime. And yes, we had our firstborn, and our second was on the way. And I mean, you can certainly look at that as poor timing. I think for us, we said, okay, let's use this as an exciting practice, an exciting opportunity to say, we would have stayed here in Miami had this not happened. She was working for the school district at the time. And I think we just said, let's, if we could be anywhere and we wanted to make some changes in our life, what would that look like? And we knew we wanted to stay in Florida. That's where both of our family networks are, but we kind of cast a net over the entire state to see what came out. And we'd never heard of Vero Beach, and found an opportunity here where I am now, United Against Poverty. And it was an adventure. It was a risk. We left, our comfort zone and our culture and some family behind in Miami. But I think we can both look back 5 years after the fact and said it was a blessing, because I think a lot of folks pivoted. I think we talked a lot even here as an organization and watched so many Americans that were a part of, not the Great Recession, but folks just kind of taking an opportunity to say, COVID presented an opportunity for me to look in the mirror, maybe pump the brakes a little bit and said, do I want to make a shift in my life, in my career? And here's the opportunity to do it. I don't want to do what I've been doing. I don't enjoy this line of work. I'm not able to pay the bills as a result of it. Do I want to go back and retrain myself? Do I want to move somewhere different? Do I want to make some significant changes in my life? And I'm glad that we grabbed that opportunity, and it's worked out well for us.
I think hindsight is always 2020. And so when we look back, we definitely can see the positivity. And I think sometimes in the moment it is survival, but you practice that so well because you went from survival to thriving in a time that was very frightening. And I think that speaks highly to your and your wife's character. And I think you're right too about pivoting and being able to see things. So, all right, let me stop babbling. All right, United Against Poverty brings together workforce development, wraparound services, which I mean, just to be honest, Matt, wraparound services are my favorite because I always think you get the biggest impact when you address all the issues, not one, and strong community partnerships, which we both love those partnerships. What makes this model effective for people facing real barriers to stability?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, first and foremost, I don't think Vero's that much different than a lot of communities across the country, where when you really dig into it, there are some tremendous resources and tremendous organizations. But when you are pressed for time, if you have challenges with digital literacy, understanding how to navigate and do your own research, if you're transportation burdened, the ability to kind of map out exactly how I get connected to all these nonprofits to learn about how they can support me and my family can be a tremendous challenge. And then, the reality is, I think for a lot of the population that we serve, if it's at that lowest level support net level, it doesn't always feel like a dignified experience. Sometimes you kind of feel like a number in the system, a cog in the wheel. And if I need to go from place X that says, well, you don't qualify here, you got to go to place Y, and I just have to continue to repeat my story or repeat my trauma or repeat some of the challenges that I'm experiencing, I may get to the point where I say, I'll figure this out myself, right? The system is not really supporting me. Whereas you come here and dignity and respect are at the core of everything that we do. We want to get a baseline feel for what those challenges are in a confidential setting. So if it's food insecurity, we've got a massive grocery program here. If it's health-related concerns, if you need to get connected to resources, we've got 9 different nonprofit organizations who are locally based who operate out of our center. We're really blessed to have a 46,000 square foot facility. If you're underemployed or unemployed and you're ready for work, we've got those opportunities, as I mentioned, right here through our workforce programs. And then if it's something that we don't have here in the building, we've got fantastic relationships. And we're not just saying, let me write down 3 different nonprofits that I think can be beneficial for you. We really have it detailed, almost like 2-1-1 in a sense, where based on what I know of your household size, household income, some of the challenges you may be experiencing, are you a veteran, not a veteran? Now I can piecemeal exactly the nonprofits I know that you do qualify for their services, and I can put together a more detailed roadmap and support you along the way to get the services and support you need.
I think a couple of things that you said in there that were so important is when you are in need of services, having to continually ask, make yourself vulnerable, repeat your story is more traumatic than people give it credit for. Sure. And people don't understand how demeaning and how you can feel like less than a human because that voice in your head is telling you, I'm an adult. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't need this help. I should be able to figure it out. When in all honesty, we're a community. We all have had those moments. We're all here to support each other. And so the fact that people can do, I hate to use this term, forgive me, but a one-stop shop, right? Yeah. And only have to tell their story 1, maybe 2 times is so powerful because it allows for that emotional and mental healing to start immediately. You give solutions right away. And people so often don't understand what people need in those times are solutions, tangible solutions. And that's exactly what you're providing, which is so powerful.
Well, thank you, Sarah. I agree with you. And I'll tell you what else, because I think that's the traditional population. And that, yes, that is a majority of who we serve here. But everybody's well aware of, the affordability crisis and cost of living really across our country right now. I know that we have a lot of individuals in our community as well that would see the name United Against Poverty and they would assume that's not for me. I don't qualify. I make too much. I'm working. When in reality, we've had to make the shift last year for our Indian River campus from having a traditional financial threshold qualifier for a grocery program of 200% or below of federal poverty level up to 300%. Because we could see from the ALICE reports from United Way, we could see from census data, the cost of living, just if you're employed to keep your head above water and meet those basic necessities was substantially higher than that. So we're trying to adapt to make sure that we can serve more that are doing the best they can.
And I love that you said that, doing the best that you can, because that is so true, because every day everybody gets up and puts their best foot forward. Sometimes you just get battered so many times before you even leave the door that it's hard to keep going. And it sounds like you guys are very aware of meeting those basic needs to elevate people to an area where they can thrive. And I really commend you for being so open-minded is not the right word, but it is what I can think of right now to understanding the shift that needs to happen to raising that poverty level. Sure. Because cost of living is skyrocketing and it is an everyday conversation for most people.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, across the board, right? And I mean, we even talk about our connection point to the Chamber of Commerce here or economic development efforts, right? I mean, you would think it would be an easy solution to say, well, okay, cost of food, cost of rent, cost of transportation, cost of childcare. If you look over a 5-year period, all of these things have increased 25, 50%, but wages haven't met that. So, right, where are the better career opportunities? A lot of industry is not necessarily excited about coming into Indian River County because of our cost of living challenges, right? I mean, we've got a lot of the workforce for the major employers in this county that are commuting in. They're not residents of Indian River County, and that takes dollars out of our county as well.
Right. It's just a circle. But it sounds like you guys are involved in every aspect of it, which is great.
We're doing the best we can.
It sounds like you're doing better than best. Let's say that. It sounds like you're doing incredible. You've talked about how this role feels like a culmination of everything you've done before.
Yeah.
What lessons from all of your different experiences show up most clearly in how you lead today?
Oh, wow. Um, oof. You know, my wife has taught me so much, and has I want to say grabbed me by the ear and dragged me into some spaces that I was kicking and screaming about getting into originally, that now in hindsight I'm so glad she did. She had that foresight, and I think balance is one of those things, where, before we were married and before we had kids, I think both of us to a certain extent were kind of career obsessed. I mean, I just wanted to be working nonstop. It's what I loved. I've been very blessed, and that's never changed for me, that I love work, because I love, the mission and the organizations that I've had an opportunity to work for. I do think in all those lessons, certainly feeling like I'm responsible for everything. I have to own everything. If I just can put in, 65, 70-hour weeks, I can really solve for these things. Now at 43, with two kids and being in a leadership position, I just prioritize so much the value of surrounding yourself with quality leaders. And
Mhm.
I just, when people ask me about my leadership style, I usually say it's informed by positive and negative experiences I've had with the leaders who have led me, or who have not led me that well, right? Like observing things that I would say, if and when I get into that position, I'm not going to do that to my team. Or, wow, I just really thrived because this leader created this environment for me. And that's something that I want to do once I arrive in that position. And to me, the main thing is being empowered.
Mhm.
Folks that have incredible skill sets. We've got a staff member here who always reminds us, where I'm weak, somebody on my team is strong, and vice versa.
Yes.
And so I really
Yes.
have the peace of mind to say, I've surrounded myself with incredible leaders, and my job primarily is to make sure that they have the resources and the support from me to be able to do what they've been hired to do, and to feel like they can fail forward, they can lean into their roles without me micromanaging or feeling like I have to have ownership over everything. And I think being in higher education, being in Peace Corps, being an educator, working with military veterans, seeing how that community functions and the connectedness of those men and women. Yes, there are little bits and pieces, good and bad, that I've pulled from, that absolutely inform how I go about my day to day here.
Lot of nuggets there. Let me start with the one. You have a team member who said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, where I am weak, another team member is strong.
Yeah,
That I think is the one of the best beliefs to have. That is definitely how I work. I know it sounds crazy, but when you hire somebody, I always say hire for your weaknesses, right? You want to hire for the areas that you're weak in. And then I always am a very visual person. So this will add a minute of levity to such a serious conversation. So in my head, I picture literally King Arthur and the knights at the round table. And I'm like, okay, it's a round table and everybody has their strengths, and we're going to hire to fill the strengths that we're missing.
yeah,
And then we're going to check our egos at the door, and we're just going to talk and we're going to solve those problems. And that sounds like exactly what you've built. And the fact that you're listening to your wife and giving her credit, and you're talking about past experiences and good leaders and bad leaders, because I always tell people there's so much more power in knowing what not to do than
mm,
in what to do sometimes. And
sure,
if you can look at your past experiences and say, I do not want to lead X, Y, and Z, that opens up so many more doors. And so I think there was just so many pieces of wisdom that you shared there. All right, let's talk about something that I love to talk about, which I think has been this whole conversation. So it's probably going to sound stupid at this point, right? Just repetitive. Workforce development.
yeah.
It's so critical now, but it's also emotionally demanding work, right? How do you and your team stay grounded, hopeful, and focused while supporting people through poverty related challenges?
Well, I will tell you, and this is a simple answer in one aspect, because this is very challenging work, and the demographic that we work with here are, predominantly men and women who have some substantial barriers to the world of work. So that could represent itself in the form of no high school diploma or GED, a criminal background, mental health or substance misuse challenges, in and out of homelessness. Very serious topics, but we use humor quite a bit here. It's not one of our core values, but I have worked for organizations where have fun is a core value, and I've always loved that too. It's like this is hard work, this is demanding work, but if we can still find ways to have fun, to laugh, I think it lightens the work a little bit. It allows for us not to feel like we have to carry so much emotional weight. I think we do a really good job of showing up, rolling our sleeves up, understanding the significance of our work. We really love being in the trenches, like you said, with the men and women that we work with. They're fantastic individuals. They inspire us. They make us laugh as well. Yes, they frustrate us sometimes. But again, continuity, I think, is something really important as well. When you talk about that COVID era, we were certainly a part of, I think, a national crisis at the time, and that was retention. It was very hard to keep people, when you find quality individuals to be a part of your team, you've got to do everything you can to keep them retained. And so again, some of the easy things to me is, again, empowerment, making sure that no matter what role they're in, they have a voice at the table. If they have a project or something that they're passionate about, let's find a way to allow them to lean into that. So they're not constantly being dismissed, and I don't feel empowered. I don't feel like I have an active voice. We do a lot of professional development. Everybody on staff here has a budget allocated for them individually to go out and say, where are some professional development opportunities that not only strengthen my ability to do my job now, but start to give me some skills for the job that I'm not qualified for right now that I want here at United Against Poverty. And I think continuity means a lot. We trust each other. We have a fantastic relationship. We can be very blunt and honest with each other. And again, where somebody's weak, somebody else is strong. And so not being afraid to ask for that type of support. So we entered into this year with the same team in place that we had locked in 2025. And we had just over 130 adults that became successfully employed here. It's a lot. The curriculum is heavy. The coaching aspect of it is heavy. Understanding the challenges of the adults we serve is heavy. And so once you've got a team that all understand that, all speak the same language, all have a relationship and trust because they've been doing it together for years, to me, that's worth its weight in gold. And if I'm fighting for additional resources as an organization, it's to make sure we continue to take care of the staff we have, because at the end of the day, they're the most critical piece of our ability to be successful.
If you're listening to this episode, if you can just take that last answer and listen to it on repeat, that wisdom was so perfect. And I do want to stress the power of humor because, Matt, I did make you laugh before we started this podcast. And I will tell you, whether I am doing a podcast, whether I'm doing a business meeting, whatever aspect that I'm doing, then sitting down with meeting somebody, I always look for a way to connect and a way to make them laugh in the first 5 minutes. Because if you can do those things, then you can get a good conversation going. And you just encapsulated all of that. Okay. Last question. So then you can feel like you're off the burner, although I have to say, Matt, your answers have been fabulous. For someone listening who wants to live a life of service, be it through Peace Corps, nonprofits, community work, and let me also say volunteering, because there's a lot of power in volunteering. What would you want them to know before taking that step?
Great question. I love when people, and young or old, sometimes it'll be somebody that's young that you're having that conversation with. Sometimes, interestingly enough, it'll be, somebody that's really on the tail end of their career. Maybe they've done it in the for-profit sector or banking or marketing, advertising. They haven't felt like they've felt success in their career, but they haven't necessarily felt like their career was something where they could directly feel how it was impacting others. And they're kind of either getting to that stage where, I've done okay financially, I would like to use the last 5 years of my career to shift into the nonprofit space so I can feel that. Or I am retired and I want to volunteer my time. I want to give back. Usually my response to that is do a little bit of due diligence before you jump in, because there's literally 1,000 different directions that you can go with this. I usually encourage folks, particularly if they're in a larger city, to, if you've got a local United Way, awesome place to start, right? Find a United Way, and then also a community foundation have already done all the legwork for you. And so usually they're driving a majority of their resources to the real larger challenges that are happening in that respective community. And then you can piecemeal together from there who were the key players in the nonprofit space that are working on that. So maybe I'm passionate about veterans. Maybe I love animals. Maybe I love young children. Maybe I have a love for reading and I want to teach others who don't know how to read to be able to do that. Maybe I have always felt a calling with seniors, or there's something that's connected to me in my personal life, whether it's memory care or cancer recovery, you name it. I mean, there's by and large going to be an organization that's doing the kind of work that you're passionate about. And all of us need volunteer support, right? And so just doing that due diligence, researching who's doing the type of work that you're passionate about. And again, maybe there's 5 or 6 that you're interested in. Do a couple of volunteer experiences. The unfortunate reality is some nonprofits are managing the cultural and experiential aspect of volunteerism way better than others. But the only way for you to know is to get in there and roll your sleeves up and try it, And again, I usually tell folks, even if you've been in the for-profit and you're looking to transition professionally into the nonprofit, follow that path as well, right? Get it. What better way to actually get a little feel for whether this is a place that you see yourself working than to volunteer there? You'll get a honest fishbowl experience. You'll understand what the culture of that organization looks like, what it feels like to spend a day in the life. And then if you love it and you start to dedicate yourself and you're kicking butt as a volunteer, when a role opens itself up, Sarah applied for that role. She's been volunteering here for the last couple of months. She's amazing. We already know the content of her character. We already know her work ethic. She already has a relationship with members of our staff. She's going to be right at the front of the line as a for this role. So just go out there and do it. Not all volunteer experiences are created equal. Some are not going to be great. That's okay. Look for the next one until you feel connected to the work that's happening.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to add to this too. If maybe you're not as mobile or transportation can sometimes be a little bit of an issue, there are still volunteer opportunities you can do from home. I can't tell you how many times envelopes need to be stuffed, or, that when I was a CEO, it was stuffing the envelopes. It was addressing the envelopes. If you need somebody to send the handwritten thank you cards,
phone calls.
Phone calls. Yes. Or I've even, when I did a lot of out of school time care and after school and summer day programming, cutting things out, right? Getting lessons put together. So I just wanted to say there is such a gamut of need for volunteering that doesn't have to happen during traditional work hours, or, maybe you're more housebound. That can still happen. You can still make a positive impact, be it in person or there. So, and something I always tell people too, share on social media, right? If you're passionate about what United Poverty does, go onto social media, share their posts, tell people about it, because it widens that sphere of influence. And your 2 minutes of sharing their posts can have incredible impact for them, right? So there's a lot there. I'm happy to talk to people about it. You're happy to talk to people about it, but there's a lot there. Matt, I apologize. You got me very excited on a great conversation on kind of a gloomy Monday morning. And I definitely talked more than I meant to. You just had such great answers. So I want to thank you first and foremost for your time today. Second, I want to thank you for the work that you do and for reminding us how important it is to meet every single person we encounter with dignity and kindness, and to always see past their exterior, because people are so much more than what they present to you. And I want to thank you for reminding us of that and the power of relationships. So thank you so much. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out, because I have to say both conversations I've had with you have just absolutely made my day. And I want to thank you for that investment you've made in me and the joy you've shared with me.
This was a blast, Sarah. I really appreciate you reaching out and letting us talk about our work.
Sounds great. Well, have a wonderful Monday, and I will be in touch soon with this episode.
Sounds good. All right.
All right. Thanks. Bye,
Thanks,
Matt.
Sarah. Bye.